My name is Ashley. I was 27 when my stepmother intercepted the job offer I'd worked toward my entire adult life. I still remember sitting alone at that cafe on Tremont Street, the one with the tall windows and the overwatered ferns in every corner. I had chosen the seat by the wall, near the shelf of local history books no one ever touched. That day, I needed quiet. I needed the world to slow down. Instead, it collapsed. I had checked my messages out of habit. There it was, the subject line that made my breath catch. My fingers trembled as I opened it. I read the first line, then reread it. And again. The position was filled. Filled? I stared, unblinking, trying to make sense of the words that didn't fit the narrative I'd been living for the past 3 months. I had been through 3 rounds of calls with their program director. I'd submitted a tailored portfolio, curated references, even attended a campus seminar to meet their current fellows. Every signal had said yes. But now, suddenly, I was being thanked for my interest. Thanked and dismissed. I sat there for almost half an hour, frozen. The cappuccino I'd ordered sat untouched. My palms felt damp against the cool ceramic mug. My whole body tensed, like I was bracing for a car crash I couldn't see yet. Something was wrong. Not just disappointing, off. I kept replaying my last exchange with the organization. The director, Elise, had sounded warm. Encouraging. She even said, "We're looking forward to bringing you on." It wasn't a maybe. It had felt like a done deal. So what had changed? When I returned to the house that evening, everything looked the same. My dad was in the garage, drilling into plywood he didn't need, chasing silence the only way he knew how. Inside, the kitchen lights were on. My stepmother, Amanda, and her daughter, Nicole, were at the counter giggling over something on her laptop. The moment I stepped in, their laughter died. I stood in the doorway, bag still over my shoulder, watching them pretend I hadn't arrived. Amanda snapped the laptop shut and said something about leftover lasagna. Nicole smiled too widely. Too fast. My skin prickled. They'd been in my room that morning. Amanda had said she was dusting, even though I hadn't asked her to. I had left my documents on the desk, not hidden, but not out for show either. That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts kept circling that email. I tried to dismiss it. Told myself the world isn't fair. That people get passed over all the time. But at 2:43 a.m., when the house was quiet and every creak in the floorboards sounded personal, I got up. I sat at my desk and opened the folder where I kept everything: drafts, notes, timelines, correspondence. All there. Except one thing was missing. The original file, the one with my signed acceptance form, was gone. My chest tightened. I hadn't even realized I'd saved it until I saw the gap where it should have been. The folder had been opened recently. Modified. 3 days ago. By morning, I wasn't just anxious. I was certain. I stared at the gap in the folder for a long time. It wasn't just a missing file. It was a deliberate absence, like someone had reached into my world and plucked out a piece of my future. But there was something else. The autosave archive I kept, tucked deep inside a backup folder labeled after an old internship, held a copy. Not the original, but something close. I clicked it open. And my blood went cold. It was the same form. Same structure. Same phrasing, right down to the sentence I had rewritten 5 times to get the tone right. The formatting was mine. The wording was mine. Even the bullet points matched. But the name at the top wasn't mine. I read it twice to be sure. Then a 3rd time. Nicole Dawson. I blinked so hard my eyes burned. I scrolled to the footer. Everything else untouched. Not even corrected for tense. It was my file. My words. My qualifications. With her name swapped in like a cheap sticker over a masterpiece. I couldn't breathe. I pressed my palm against my chest, half expecting my heart to stop. It didn't. It just pounded louder. At 6:12 a.m., I stepped outside in my coat, ignoring the frost that clung to the windshield. I needed air. Or maybe space. Or maybe proof that the world hadn't just tipped into something unnatural. By the time I made it to the cafe again, the same one from yesterday, the barista looked at me twice before asking if I was okay. I must have looked like a ghost. I nodded, paid for a black coffee, and sat facing the wall. I didn't even take a sip. Instead, I took out my notebook. Not the digital kind, the real one. Leather cover, lined pages, faint scent of graphite still baked into the paper from late-night scribbling applications. I began writing. Applied 3 months ago. Elise equals 3 video calls. Verbal yes, 2 weeks back. Form saved with timestamp. File now missing. Copy appears in archive. Name replaced with Nicole's. I underlined that last line 3 times. Then circled it. When I got back to the house, Amanda was watering the plant that never needed water. She looked up too quickly. Couldn't sleep? She asked lightly. No, I said, not bothering to fake a smile. Nicole walked in seconds later, dressed like she had somewhere to be. Somewhere important. A sleek blazer. Subtle makeup. Not her usual hoodie and messy bun routine. Something in me snapped into focus. I've got a conference downtown, she said casually. Community engagement stuff. Should be fun. She said it like it was nothing. Like it hadn't taken me 4 years of internships and sacrifice to even qualify for something like that. Amanda glanced between us. Isn't it wonderful? She said sweetly. Nicole's really found her calling. The silence after that sentence could have shattered glass. I excused myself and went upstairs. Locked the door. Sat on the floor and stared at the notebook again. My mind kept looping the same phrase. You're not paranoid if you're right. There was only one way to know for sure. I dug out my old hard drive from college. It was dusty, heavy, and slow, but it had everything I'd ever backed up from old devices. It took an hour, but eventually I found the original version. The real one. With my name. With the correct timestamp. And a file created exactly 1 day later. I opened that one. Same content. Different name. That night, I slept with the notebook on my chest. The hard drive under my pillow. Because now it wasn't just suspicion. It was evidence. I left the house before either of them came downstairs. The hard drive was in my bag. The notebook, tucked beneath my coat. I didn't eat. I didn't speak. I took the train in silence, the clatter of the tracks lining up with my heartbeat like a countdown. The campus was gray that morning, sky hung low, the quad slick with drizzle. I hadn't walked these paths since the fellowship mixer in spring. Back then, I felt seen. Like I finally belonged among people who believed in what I could do. Now, every brick felt like a question I didn't know how to answer. I stepped inside the admin building, shaking water off my sleeves. The receptionist looked up from her desk, mid-sip of coffee. Hi, I said, forcing my voice steady. I was hoping to speak with someone from the placement office. Her eyes flicked over me. Do you have an appointment? No, but it's important. I applied for a position here recently, and I paused. The words tasted like doubt. I just need to confirm something. There was a pause. She held my gaze longer than necessary. Then, slowly, she picked up the phone. A minute later, she gestured to a side hallway. End of the corridor. Room 112. I thanked her and walked, each step heavier than the last. Inside room 112, the woman behind the desk wore a tailored beige cardigan and a name tag I didn't recognize. Her office smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old paper. She looked up with practiced warmth. You must be. I gave her my name. Her expression didn't change. I just had a few questions about the selection process for the community engagement role, I said carefully. I know it's been filled, but I wanted to understand how final candidates were selected. She folded her hands. All applicants were reviewed through our standard process. We only contact those who've reached the final stage. I was told I was moving forward. I see, she said. And your name again? I repeated it. Slower this time. Her pen hovered over the notepad, then tapped once. Did you submit materials directly to the portal? I nodded. 3 interviews. I spoke with Elise, from the program office. Elise isn't involved with first-round selections, she said gently. Only finalists meet with her. I went still. I was told I'd been shortlisted. The woman's eyes flicked down again. Her pen didn't move. Something shifted behind her expression, not shock, not guilt. Recognition. I'm afraid I can't disclose any internal documentation, she said, voice cooler now. If you weren't contacted with an offer, that's all we can share. She reached for a form on her desk, but I stood up. "Thank you," I said, before she could continue. I walked out slowly. Each step felt like it echoed, as if the hall itself wanted me to hear the answer I hadn't been given. Outside, the wind had picked up. The sky broke open, not with light, but with the kind of rain that soaked fast, without warning. I didn't run. I let it hit me. Back at the train station, I opened my notebook again. Under today's date, I wrote, "Woman knew my name." Tried to deflect. No offer was ever sent to me. Elise equals not first contact. Something changed before Elise. I underlined that last line twice. When I got off at my stop, I didn't go home. I walked 3 blocks in the other direction, to the co-working space I sometimes used. I didn't need a desk that day. I needed a printer. One that didn't log activity. One I could trust. I made 2 copies of the modified file. One for my folder. One for what came next. Because now, this wasn't just about being ignored. It was about being erased. The copy of that file sat heavy in my bag. Like a stone in my chest, like a weight I couldn't shake. I walked home from the co-working space slowly, watching the neighborhood blur past, dog walkers, lawn trimmers, the faint sound of music from a passing car. Ordinary things. My life had stopped feeling ordinary 3 days ago. Amanda's car was in the driveway when I got back. So was Nicole's. I didn't go inside. Not right away. Instead, I circled the side of the house and sat on the back porch, just out of sight. My dad had built that porch when I was 15, the summer after his second wedding. I used to read there for hours, legs tucked under me, pretending the world was still mine. Now I sat with my arms wrapped tight across my ribs, watching the reflection in the sliding glass door. Nicole was in the kitchen, pacing. She wore that same blazer. Her hair was pinned up, professional and polished, so unlike the girl who used to steal my hoodies and spill popcorn on the couch during movie nights. She was speaking quickly, phone at her ear. Her other hand gestured sharply. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw her face. I saw the shift, the nervous flick of her eyes, the tightness in her mouth. Amanda walked in moments later, holding a folded envelope. She didn't say anything, just handed it over. Nicole opened it, smiled. Then she reached for her phone again and typed something fast. I waited. 1 breath. 2. Then I stood and walked around the house like I'd just arrived. Inside, I moved quietly. Nobody noticed me. Not yet. I heard Nicole upstairs. Her door creaked shut. Amanda was at the kitchen table, flipping through a magazine. "Hey, sweetie," she said with a too bright smile. "You're back early." I just nodded and walked past her. Up the stairs. Into my room. Then I locked the door. I sat down, pulled out my planner, and flipped to the calendar. I hadn't touched it in weeks. But now it mattered. I wrote down every date. Every change. Every piece of this unraveling puzzle. The day I saved the file. The day it was altered. The day Amanda had dusted my desk. The day Nicole had picked a fight with me over nothing, now clearly a distraction. One box stood out. 4 days ago. A quiet Saturday. I'd been out at a seminar, gone from the house for nearly 7 hours. Amanda had baked. Nicole had cleaned. That night, my laptop was warm when I opened it, though I hadn't used it since morning. I wrote that down too. Then I got up, walked into the hall, and paused by Nicole's door. She was humming softly. Her phone buzzed. I heard it vibrate against wood, followed by a short laugh. I stepped closer. The door was cracked open. She was facing away from me, seated on her bed, phone still in hand. And that's when I saw it, the message glowing on her screen for just a second before she swiped it away. It wasn't addressed to me, but I recognized a phrase I'd written. A line I'd used in my application. Verbatim. The message was short. And it ended with 2 words. You're in. I backed away quietly. Down the stairs. Into the garage. I stood there in the dark for several minutes, hand pressed against the workbench, trying to breathe through the shaking. Then I opened my notebook again. This time, I didn't write anything. I started tearing out pages, photocopies, handouts, application timelines. I sorted them by date, by language, by phrasing. My fingertips worked faster than my thoughts. I wasn't documenting anymore. I was building something. I spent the night surrounded by paper. The kitchen table, long cleared of family dinners, had become a battlefield of highlighters, timelines, and duplicate documents. Somewhere between 1 and 3 a.m., I stopped calling it paranoia. This wasn't a theory anymore. It was a pattern. And now I had to follow the trail back to the source. At 8 o'clock sharp, I walked through the cold stone entrance of the university's records office. The woman at the front desk barely looked up. Enrollment. Submission archive, I said. I need to review past application packets. From the last recruitment cycle. That made her pause. Faculty only access those. I'm a candidate. There's been a discrepancy in my file, I replied evenly. I've been advised to request a review. In person. She raised a brow, but didn't argue. She picked up the phone, made a short call, and then motioned me toward the back staircase. Basement. Room 3C. Someone will meet you there. I walked the corridor slowly, my breath shallow. Every hallway light flickered slightly. The basement smelled like old paper and colder air. Room 3C was colder than the rest. A man in a thick sweater met me at the door. You're the one with the missing application? More like an overwritten one, I said. He nodded. We keep digital copies on the server. But initial packets get scanned and archived, especially the ones sent by mail. I didn't send mine by mail. That's what makes this interesting. He led me to a workstation. A bulky desktop hummed in the corner, screen already active. We found one application under your name. Signed. Dated. Mailed 2 days before the deadline. I stared at him. That's not possible. He double-clicked a file. There it was. My name. My format. My layout. But I knew that version, it was an earlier draft. One I'd abandoned before finalizing the key sections. And the language? Sloppy. Generic. Things I never would have submitted. He scrolled down. Then stopped. There's the signature, he said, tapping the screen. I leaned in. It was written in my handwriting. But it wasn't mine. I stood so fast my chair screeched against the tile. Can I get a printout of this? He looked uncertain. I'm not asking, I said. He clicked print. I waited in silence while the machine whirred and coughed out the pages. Can I ask who told you to come here? He said as he handed them over. No one, I replied, tucking them into my folder. That's the point. I stepped out into the overcast light, eyes stinging from the artificial glow of the archive room. The wind hit my face like a slap. I didn't flinch. Back on the train, I unfolded the printout again. The signature was almost perfect, just crooked enough to seem authentic. The kind of forgery someone creates when they've watched you sign receipts your whole life. The curve of the D, the length of the line between names. Someone had studied me, copied me, or lived with me long enough to mimic me. I flipped the page over. There was a postal stamp. I recognized the number. It matched the post office 2 blocks from our house. My stomach turned. The weight of it pressed on my spine like a concrete wall. This hadn't been an accident. This had been orchestrated. I reached for my notebook. Wrote only one sentence this time. She submitted a version I never approved. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of fear, but because now I knew exactly what had been taken from me. And soon, they'd know I knew. That morning, I chose the dark green dress. Not for revenge, not yet, but for memory. It was the same dress I'd planned to wear to the onboarding seminar I never got invited to. The fabric still held the tag. I peeled it off and tossed it in the trash without a second thought. Nicole was already gone when I came downstairs. Amanda was at the table, scrolling through her phone like she hadn't just orchestrated a fraud that ripped my name off my future. I poured coffee. Sat across from her. Neither of us spoke. She glanced up. You look nice. So do lies, I said, without blinking. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Went back to her screen. I walked out 15 minutes later. Calm. Precise. The conference was held at a glass-front hotel downtown, banners fluttering in the breeze outside the lobby. Community equity and health futures, the exact space I had dreamed of being in, built toward, mapped for years. And now Nicole was inside, wearing my credentials. I didn't register. I didn't need a badge. I walked through the revolving doors like I belonged there. The lobby was buzzing, young professionals with clipboards, panels being set up, catering trays rolled past on carts. I moved through the crowd slowly, like a shadow. Near the central hallway, there was a tall display listing all breakout sessions. That's where I saw it. Innovative Community Partnership Strategies, moderated by Nicole Dawson. Moderated. Not attending. Not observing. Leading. My fingers curled around the handle of my bag. I inhaled once. Twice. Then I walked toward Ballroom C. The doors weren't guarded. I slipped in quietly, taking a seat in the last row. A handful of attendees milled about, sipping coffee, finding chairs. At the front, a small panel table with name placards. And at the center of it, Nicole. She didn't see me. She was setting up her notes. Flipping through a folder with the same teal tabs I used. Same layout. Same color code. Like watching a reflection that didn't know it was stolen. At 10:01, the lights dimmed slightly, and the session began. Nicole smiled. Spoke clearly. Introduced herself as a program designer and grant coordinator. I felt the heat rise behind my ears. She used my phrases. My project summaries. Word-for-word sections I had written in the quiet nights while the rest of the house slept. She spoke like she'd earned it. Like she was it. Halfway through her third slide, she glanced up. Her eyes landed on me. And froze. She lost her sentence mid-word. The audience didn't notice. But I did. Her hands shifted. She fumbled slightly with her next paper. I tilted my head slowly. Not with rage. With precision. Her voice pitched higher as she continued. Quicker. Like rushing would outrun the recognition. But she kept looking back. Again and again. I didn't move. Not until the session ended. Then I stood. And walked straight toward her. She saw me coming and turned pale. Hi, Nicole, I said quietly. Nice talk. Almost made me believe you'd written it. She looked around. Can we not? You already did, I said. Then I pulled the file from my bag and laid it on the panel table. Next time you copy someone's work, remember this. Your name can't erase my fingerprints. I left her there motionless. And outside, in the sun, I finally let my shoulders drop. Not from relief. From control. Because this was the beginning. Not the end. Amanda loved the brunch place on Hawthorne, not because of the food, but because of the people who could see her sitting there. The glass walls. The white linens. The endless parade of women who wore heels too early in the morning just to prove they'd never let themselves go. I arrived 15 minutes before her. Chose the table near the back, under the fake ficus tree with peeling bark. I ordered tea. Waited. She walked in wearing pearls, a cream blazer, and her favorite, "Oh, I didn't know you'd be here," smile. Her friends Karen and Linda trailed behind her, their laughter pre-rehearsed. I stayed silent. Let her take her seat. Let her glance my way, that flicker of tension behind her eyes before she turned back toward the group, pretending this was her domain. I didn't speak. The waitress brought mimosas. The small talk began. Then Amanda's phone buzzed. Once. Twice. A long pause. She glanced down. Her brow furrowed. Then the phone rang. She hesitated. For a second too long. Linda was mid-sentence about her youngest joining law school when Amanda raised a finger and muttered, "Sorry, I should take this." She stepped away, weaving through tables, lips pressed tight. She moved like someone trying not to run. I counted the seconds. For minutes later, she returned. Her complexion had changed. Her voice too light. "That was odd," she said with a forced smile. "What happened?" Karen asked. Amanda waved her hand. "Nothing, just a miscommunication with one of the program contacts Nicole's been working with." "Oh," Linda said, blinking. "From that fellowship thing?" Amanda nodded, but her eyes flicked toward me. I raised my cup slightly. She blinked. I smiled. It wasn't about the call itself, it was about the caller. Earlier that morning, I had sent a carefully worded inquiry to the director of community programs at the university. Not an accusation. Just a request to verify a few facts and to flag any discrepancy between submitted materials and approved candidates. I didn't name names. But I didn't need to. The archive file did that for me. I knew they'd follow up. I just didn't know it would be so fast. After brunch, Amanda cornered me near the restrooms. You had no right, she hissed. You're causing problems for Nicole. You don't know what she's been through. Neither do you, I interrupted. Because you never asked. She opened her mouth. I didn't name her, I said. I just asked questions. Honest ones. She flinched. You're making this worse. No. I'm just making it seem. She looked at me like I'd betrayed her. And for a brief second, I almost laughed. Because only Amanda could rewrite betrayal into defense. Only she could turn theft into inconvenience. I walked out before she could respond. That evening, I found my dad in the garage, sorting nails by size, a ritual he always fell back on when the world made too much noise. I stood in the doorway. He didn't look up. Did you know? I asked. His hands stilled. Silence stretched long between us. Then, without turning, he said, she told me it was just a copy. Something Nicole was using as inspiration. My heart sank. You believe that? He placed a nail back in the box. I didn't ask questions. And there it was. The quiet betrayal I had always felt but never seen so plainly. Not action. Not interference. Just silence. That night, I made another set of copies. Labeled. Tabbed. Chronologically ordered. Because next time the phone rang, it wouldn't be a courtesy call. That night, I wasn't expecting anyone. So when my phone buzzed, not once, but twice in a row, I hesitated. Unknown number. No voicemail. Then a message came through. I saw you at the conference. We should talk. I'm not part of this. I stared at the screen. Then typed back. Who is this? Seconds later. Maya Jennings. I was on the final panel for the fellowship. That name. I remembered it from the online bios. A health advocate from Detroit with real grassroots credentials. She had spoken at the Mixer last spring, right before the room quieted for the keynote. I remember thinking, she belongs here. Fully. So why was she texting me? We agreed to meet at a diner 2 towns over, neutral ground. One of those places with final booths and servers who called everyone Han. I arrived early. Wore a hooded coat. Ordered tea I didn't touch. Maya walked in 10 minutes later. Tall. Confident. But her eyes scanned the room like she didn't trust it. She slid into the booth across from me and didn't waste time. I didn't know your name until after, she said. But I recognized your work. That project Nicole presented, it wasn't hers. I could tell. I didn't speak. Just nodded for her to go on. She used language that didn't match her style. Concepts that didn't line up with her resume. And then she got defensive when I asked questions. My fingers gripped the edge of the table. She said you were her mentor, Maya added. That you gave her permission. My stomach twisted. Maya shook her head. I didn't believe it. So after the panel, I did some digging. And I found your name listed in the preliminary applicant pool. Under review. Then suddenly? Gone. She pulled out her phone. Pressed play on a voice memo. The quality wasn't perfect, low room noise, some rustling. But the voices were clear. Nicole's voice, unmistakable. She wasn't gonna get it anyway. I just helped the timeline a little. It's not like she had the contacts I had. Another voice, someone I didn't recognize, laughed awkwardly. Then Nicole again. It's not stealing if you upgrade it. I couldn't breathe. Maya stopped the recording. Slid the phone toward me. I figured you might need that. I stared at her. Why are you helping me? Her expression hardened. Because I've been in rooms like that. Where people assume the soft-spoken one didn't build her own work. Where someone louder slides into a space they didn't earn. She shrugged. I don't like fraud. Doesn't matter whose name is on it. We sat in silence a moment. Then she leaned in. She's sloppy. That file? It was lifted. Whole paragraphs, unedited. If you wanted to pursue this, you'd win. Guaranteed. I didn't smile. Didn't cry. I just whispered, thank you. When I got home, I walked past Amanda in the hallway. She was talking to Nicole on speakerphone. Their voices lowered as I passed. I didn't stop. I didn't need to listen anymore. Because now I had more than suspicion. I had proof in her own voice. That night, I transcribed the recording. Highlighted the phrases. Matched them to my original drafts. Page by page. Line by line. The weight of silence had lifted. And in its place, clarity. The summons came in an email marked confidential. University letterhead. A time. A room number. No explanation. I didn't need one. I knew exactly what it was. I arrived 10 minutes early. Dressed simply, no performance. I didn't need to dress the part anymore. The truth was already wearing my name again. Room 414 was on the 4th floor of the Academic Affairs Wing, past a series of glass offices that looked like they were built for intimidating donors. The assistant who greeted me didn't smile, just gestured toward the inner room and closed the door behind me. Inside were 3 people. One from HR, one from faculty review, and one woman I recognized from a university webinar last year, someone who'd once commented on my community report with words like innovative and forward-thinking. None of them offered coffee. "Thank you for coming," the HR rep said. Her tone was stiff. "We wanted to discuss concerns raised about your application and subsequent allegations surrounding." I cut her off, calm but clear. "There are no allegations. Just facts." She blinked. I opened my folder, spread out the timeline. Timestamps. Signature discrepancies. Printouts of the altered submission. Side-by-sides of my original draft and the version submitted under Nicole's name. No one spoke for a long beat. Then the faculty woman leaned forward. "These are serious claims. I didn't make them lightly. And you're saying your stepsister took my original work, submitted it under her name, forged my signature on a postal application, and has now misrepresented herself within your program." I let the silence hang. Then, as if on cue, the door behind me opened. Everyone turned. Maya walked in, composed and uninvited. She nodded once at me, then addressed the room. "My name is Maya Jennings. I sat on the final panel for candidate selection. I have evidence that Nicole Dawson knowingly plagiarized sections of her submission from the original author, the one sitting in this chair." The woman from HR stood halfway, startled. "This is a closed." "I'm aware," Maya said. "But considering the university's stated policies on equity and academic integrity, I assumed you'd want full transparency." She placed a small recorder on the table. Pressed play. Nicole's voice again, unmistakable. She wasn't gonna get it anyway. I just helped the timeline a little. No one moved. No one breathed. When the recording ended, Maya spoke again. "I don't speak for everyone on the panel, but I didn't vote for Nicole. I raised concerns about the authorship. They were dismissed." The HR woman glanced between her and me. "Why bring this now?" "Because," Maya said, "if this university is serious about the values it claims to uphold, then the truth should matter, even when it's inconvenient." The review officer cleared his throat. "We'll need to conduct an internal audit." Maya looked at me. I stood. "I have copies of all documents," I said quietly. "And I'll be forwarding them to the oversight board. If this room won't address it, another will." I didn't wait for dismissal. Neither did Maya. We walked out side by side. In the hallway, she finally exhaled. "Well, that was dramatic." I laughed once, short and bitter. That was overdue. She squeezed my arm. "This isn't over. But now it's undeniable." Outside, the sky had shifted heavy with late afternoon gold. I felt it on my skin. Not warmth. Light. Amanda's voice had a certain pitch when she lied, not sharp, not flat. Just polished. I recognized it before I even opened the front door. "No, I completely understand your concern. And of course, Nicole is devastated. We never intended for any misunderstanding to occur." I froze in the entryway, just outside her line of sight. Her back was to me, standing near the window, phone cradled against her cheek, posture perfect. Like she thought if she held herself straight enough, her words would stand taller too. "I think this whole situation's been blown out of proportion," she continued. "We're more than willing to correct anything if it helps ease tension." I stepped forward. She spun, startled. Her grip on the phone faltered. "Just a moment," she whispered into it, then pressed mute. "What are you doing?" I asked flat. She tried to smile. "Damage control. They're overreacting, and if I can just..." "No," I walked closer. "You're not fixing this. You're covering it." Her mouth tensed. "I'm trying to preserve your relationship with the university. If you burn this bridge. You mean the bridge she lit a match under? And you handed her the gasoline? Her face darkened. You don't understand. I understand everything. And so do they now. She hesitated. Nicole didn't mean. Stop. I took a breath. Controlled. Cold. You don't get to shape this anymore. Not for them. Not for me. Amanda looked as though I'd slapped her. I reached for the folder on the console table, the one I'd left in plain sight this morning. The copy of the voice recording was inside, along with every document I'd submitted to the board. All of it labeled. Dated. In my handwriting. I held it out. You can send this. If you're really trying to make it right. Or you can keep trying to spin your way out and watch them go public on their own terms. Her hand trembled as she took it. But I didn't wait to see what she did. I turned and walked upstairs. In my room, I sat on the edge of my bed and tried to slow my breathing. But something inside me wouldn't still. Not yet. Not until the echo of her voice had faded from my memory. We never intended for any misunderstanding. As if identity theft were a hiccup. As if being erased was a misprint. I reached for the photo on my dresser, the one from my college graduation. My dad stood beside me proud. Amanda just behind, one hand on Nicole's shoulder. Even then, the divide had been visible. I just didn't see it. Or maybe I didn't want to. That night, a call came through. Not from Amanda. Not from Nicole. From the university. I answered with steady breath. We've reviewed all materials, the voice said. We'll be issuing a formal response tomorrow morning. You'll be copied. I thanked them. Hung up. Then, for the first time in months, I allowed myself to feel it, not anger. Not grief. Relief. Because whatever came next, I had pulled every thread until the whole thing unraveled. And Amanda? She was still clutching pieces of a curtain that didn't hide anything anymore. By 9:42 a.m., the statement had dropped. It didn't arrive as an apology or an email. It came through the university's official bulletin, the one every applicant, every current student, every affiliate followed religiously. One blunt, clinical paragraph posted without fanfare. Following an internal investigation into recent misconduct, the selection committee has rescinded its offer to Nicole Dawson. The panel determined that submitted materials were in breach of institutional policy and were not authored by the named applicant. Disciplinary review is ongoing. No name of the real author. No dramatics. Just fact. By 10:07, my phone lit up like fire. Messages. Missed calls. Screenshots from friends I hadn't heard from in months. At 10:14, Nicole texted me. You happy now? I didn't respond. Because this wasn't about happiness. It was about truth. At 10:30, Amanda barged into my room without knocking. Her face was pale, frantic. Did you see what they posted? I closed my notebook slowly. Yes, she's completely destroyed. She did that herself. Amanda's voice cracked. She's your sister. She's not. Amanda reeled back like I'd hit her. How can you say that? I stood, calm. Do you want me to list the reasons? Or are you finally ready to listen instead of defend? She didn't answer. Downstairs, the front door opened. Heavy steps. Nicole. The three of us ended up in the kitchen. Amanda near the sink. Me at the counter. Nicole standing in the doorway, arms folded like she could still control the room through posture alone. You think you've won, she spat. No, I said. I think the truth finally caught up to you. She laughed, bitter, wild. This wasn't even a real program. You think some fellowship matters in the long run? You think these people actually care who wrote what? Amanda stepped between us. Enough. Both of you. But Nicole kept going. She's always played the victim. You act like the world owes you something because you work hard. Newsflash, so do a lot of people. I never expected the world to hand me anything, I said, low. But I didn't expect my own family to steal from me either. Nicole's mouth opened. Shut. Amanda turned away. The silence thickened. Then Nicole's voice cracked. I just wanted one thing. One thing that wasn't secondhand. That didn't come with a comparison. You could have earned it, I said. But you didn't want the work. You wanted the credit. Tears welled in her eyes, but she turned sharply, grabbing her keys off the table. Amanda followed her, whispering something frantic. Nicole didn't look back. When the door slammed, I sat down at the table. Let the stillness fill the corners of the room. Amanda returned minutes later, her mascara smudged. She looked at me like she didn't know what to say. Like the scripts she'd memorized no longer worked. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she murmured. "It went exactly as far as you let it." She nodded slowly, but I saw it in her face. For the first time, she didn't see me as the problem. She saw the truth. And it scared her. 2 days passed after the public statement. The house felt quieter than ever, like everyone was afraid the walls might remember too much. Nicole hadn't returned. Amanda barely left her room. And Dad just walked slower, as if each step forced him to confront something he no longer had words for. I spent most of that time reorganizing my documents, not because I needed to, but because I finally could. At 3:22 p.m. on Thursday, a thick white envelope slipped through the mail slot. My name was typed on the front, spelled correctly, clean font, no smudges. No, to whom it may concern. No, household resident. Just me. I opened it carefully. Inside was a letter. 1 page. Printed on formal university stationery. Dear Danielle. After reviewing the full scope of events and original submissions, we regret the error in our initial selection process. Your work has not only demonstrated integrity and depth, it embodies the mission our program was built on. We acknowledge the harm caused by the mishandling of your application and the oversight that allowed it to be misrepresented. While this cycle's placement window has closed, we would like to formally invite you to participate in a new initiative launching next quarter, where your project will be spotlighted and supported. Additionally, we are offering to fund an independent proposal of your choosing through our Community Innovation Grant. Please find enclosed a detailed outline. We are deeply sorry for the delay in recognizing the work you clearly earned. Sincerely, Dr. Evelyn Marks, Director, Community Engagement and Research Advancement. The paper trembled slightly in my hands. Not from surprise. From breath. The kind of breath you hold for too long because you've spent months not knowing whether your name would ever be allowed to stand on its own again. The envelope also included the grant brochure, a timeline, and a handwritten post-it. Some voices take longer to reach the room. Yours deserves to be heard. It didn't feel like closure. It felt like opening. I placed the letter on the desk, smoothed its edges, and stared at it for a long while. When Amanda finally appeared in the hallway, I didn't hide it. She paused. "Is that from them?" I nodded. She didn't ask what it said. Just looked at it, then at me. "You're not gonna rub it in?" she asked, almost whispering. "No," I said. She blinked. "Why not?" "Because I don't need to anymore." And that was the truth. I wasn't fighting for acknowledgement now. I had it. Not because I screamed louder. Not because I played by their rules. Because I didn't stop when it would have been easier to disappear. That evening, I emailed Maya. Thanked her. Told her I wanted to dedicate part of the grant to the mentorship network she'd been building. She replied within an hour. "That's exactly the kind of full circle we need more of." I smiled. Not wide. Just enough to feel it settle in my chest. That night, I stood outside in the backyard, the first time in weeks, and watched the sky deepen. For once, the stars didn't feel far. They felt earned. The invitation came from Amanda. Handwritten on a card she slid under my bedroom door. Dinner. Just us. Friday. No sides. 3 words that meant more than she understood. For most of my life, family dinners were silent negotiations. Who got served first? Who got asked about their day? Who got ignored while everyone pretended it was equal? Friday came. I dressed with precision. Not elegant. Not flashy. Neutral. Strong. When I entered the restaurant, Amanda and Dad were already seated. The table was long, rectangular, meant for 6, but only set for 3. Nicole wasn't there. I didn't ask why. Amanda motioned to the seat across from her, at the far end. I walked past it. Took the head. Neither of them objected. For the first time, no one tried to control the seating. A quiet victory, but a loud one in meaning. The waiter came, menus passed, water poured. Small pleasantries offered and declined. Then Amanda folded her hands in front of her. We wanted to acknowledge everything that happened. I said nothing. Dad shifted in his seat. I read the statement, he added. I didn't know it would go that far. It didn't go far, I said evenly. It finally caught up. Amanda swallowed. Nicole's not doing well. I looked at her. Did you expect her to be? No, she admitted. But I hoped maybe, once it was over. It's not over. It just changed direction. Silence stretched. Amanda leaned forward. You're moving on, though. You got something better. You got what you earned. Correction, I said. I got back what was stolen. And now I'm building something that's mine. Dad stared at the table, his hands clenched around his fork. I should have asked more questions, he muttered. I needed you to see me, I said. Not just nod. Not just let her lead every conversation like I was lucky to be allowed at the table. His eyes met mine. Wet, but honest. Amanda looked between us. Do you want to? I don't know, rebuild. Rebuild what? I asked. A version of this where the betrayal doesn't sting as much? Or one where we pretend it was all a misunderstanding? No, she said. A version where you don't have to prove yourself anymore. I considered that. Let the idea settle. Then nodded. I'm not interested in proving. I'm interested in choosing. And I choose not to sit at a table that only sets a place when someone's watching. Amanda nodded slowly. She got it. Not all of it, not the years, the hours, the silence in stairwells after family events where I wasn't mentioned, but enough to stop pretending. Dinner continued. Short, polite, real. When the bill came, I reached for it. Amanda stopped me. Let me. For once. I let her. Outside, Dad pulled me aside. I kept that photo, he said softly. Your graduation. The one with just us. I didn't smile. But I nodded. Then I walked away first. And this time, no one followed to explain why. I was at the library downtown, the old one with the vaulted ceiling and cracked leather chairs, when my phone buzzed again. A number I hadn't saved, but knew instantly. I didn't answer. She texted instead. Please. 5 minutes. Just 5. I left the library without replying, walked 2 blocks to the corner cafe where they always oversteep the tea and forgot your order if you blinked. She was there already. Nicole. Sitting outside under the awning, wringing her hands like they might disappear if she let go. I almost turned back. But I didn't. I sat across from her. She looked up, startled, like she hadn't expected I'd really come. Like part of her still believed I owed her my presence. Thank you, she said quickly, too quickly. I needed to talk before I leave. Leave? She nodded. Amanda's sending me to stay with Aunt Carol for a while. Out of state. I raised an eyebrow. Voluntary exile? A flicker of a bitter smile. Something like that. Silence. She fidgeted with her cup. I messed up. I waited. I don't know why I did it, she continued. At the time, it didn't even feel like stealing. I just thought you wouldn't notice. Or maybe you'd be flattered. Flattered? I said, the word cutting sharper than I expected. She flinched. I know how it sounds. Everything always came so naturally to you. People liked you. They respected you. No, I said. They respected my work. Because I did it. Alone. Nicole blinked hard, her voice cracking. I just wanted one thing where I wasn't the echo. I looked at her. Truly looked. For a moment, I didn't see the girl who'd stolen my project, signed my name off, and smiled in interviews like she'd earned it. I saw the sister who used to cry when Mom forgot her birthday, who stayed in her room the entire week Amanda moved in, who always walked 2 steps behind. But empathy didn't change consequence. You didn't just take a file, I said. You took my time. My silence. You took the part of me that believed our family would see me someday. Tears fell freely now. I'm sorry. I believe you, I said. But that doesn't change what you chose. She reached for my hand. I didn't move. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she whispered. I just don't want to be erased from your life the way I tried to erase you from mine. That landed. It landed hard. But it didn't soften me. I stood slowly. I'm not erasing you. I'm just finally turning the page. Nicole didn't follow. She stayed at the table, shoulders curved inward, like she'd shrunk into the girl she used to be before the theft, before the praise, before the unraveling. As I walked away, the wind caught the corner of her napkin and flipped it over. One word was written beneath. Enough. I didn't know if it was a message or an admission. But either way, she was right. The morning I signed the contract, the air smelled like ink and rain. I sat in a sunlit corner of the administrative wing at the university, a modest room with a worn-out leather chair and a mahogany desk that had seen decades of shaky signatures. A clerk handed me the folder, smiled politely, and left without ceremony. No press. No audience. Just me. The grant letter was at the top. Below it, the agreement, simple, standard. Then a blank line. The one that had been signed by someone else once, under my name, in my handwriting. I stared at it. Then I took the pen. And I wrote slowly. Each curve of each letter exact. Deliberate. Danielle Dawson. Mine. Not corrected. Not reclaimed. Not compared. Mine. When I stood, the woman returned and offered a copy. I tucked it into my folder, thanked her, and stepped out into the hallway. My footsteps echoed soft against the stone floor. Outside, the air had shifted again. That fragile calm that comes after a storm isn't just over. It's understood. At the cafe across campus, Maya was waiting. She rose when she saw me, grinning before I even sat down. You did it. I smiled. We did. She passed me a small box. I opened it. Inside, a pen. Heavy. Real silver. Engraved. Let them see you coming next time. I laughed, not the brittle sound I used to make to smooth over tension, but something warmer. Freer. I'm not coming, I said. I'm already here. We clinked cups. She lifted hers in a mock toast. To the girl they tried to overwrite. I lifted mine in return. To the woman who rewrote everything. Later that evening, I returned home. Amanda was in the garden, trimming back roses that hadn't bloomed since spring. She looked up as I passed. We didn't speak. But for the first time in months, the silence didn't sting. It settled. Dad was in the garage, humming tunelessly under his breath. When I passed the doorway, he glanced up. Just one nod. One slow breath. Then returned to his work. No speeches. No attempts. Only room. Nicole never wrote again. No calls. No letters. But I heard from Aunt Carol once. A short note, folded inside a birthday card with no return address. Some things take longer to grow right. Doesn't mean they won't. I didn't know if she meant Nicole. Or me. Either way, I didn't need the answer. That night, I opened my journal, the one I hadn't dared write in since the day I saw my work presented under another name. This time, I didn't hesitate. First page. New chapter. No hesitation. Just my name. And then, I am not a second draft of someone else's story. I am the original manuscript. And the final edit is mine alone.